You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Hoorah!
Radical Rant.
Welcome back, everyone. 50 after the hour here on Normal Show Live. And I'm going to follow up on some of the stuff that Keith Stropp was mentioning, some of the stuff that Alan St. Pierre said the day before. And I specifically want to direct this to people on our side, to the choir, so to speak. And specifically, a group of people that I kind of collectively refer to as the Treat It Like Tomatoes crowd. And the Treat It Like Tomatoes crowd are beautiful people. They are beautiful, wonderful people who understand fully how important cannabis is to our country, to our bodies, to ourselves, to our lives. Absolutely. We agree 100% on that issue, right? And we know hemp is going to save the planet. We know that hemp seed is the most nutritious seed you can get. We know all of the great textile advantages of industrial hemp. We know the medical uses of cannabis, and we know that the recreational or personal use of cannabis is a wonderful thing, can expand your consciousness, etc., etc., etc. We're together on that, right? Okay. But we live in the real world, and we've got to get laws passed. And right now, every day that passes that remains where people remain criminals for cannabis use and cannabis cultivation is a day that families are separated, is a day that people lose their homes, that lose their jobs, lose their kids, lose their liberty, and in some cases lose their lives. So it's imperative on us as the supporters, as the people pushing these legalization measures, to understand that half a loaf is better than none, and don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, okay? And what I'm getting at here is, let me go back to the Treat It Like Tomatoes idea. This is an idea I hear from some people where they say, well, marijuana should be treated like tomatoes. Anyone can grow it. Anyone can have it in their backyard. There's no regulations. There's no permits. There's no licensing. There's no limits. You can just grow it, and you can take it to farmers markets, and you can sell it to other people, and people can buy it from you, and it's all beautiful. And yes, I am for that. I love that. I think that's a great place to get to in 50 years or 30 years, right? But these things have to be taken step by step. And we are not going to step from marijuana is deadly addictive, as bad as heroin, and leads to reefer madness. We're not going to jump from that point to marijuana kumbaya all in one fell swoop. It's going to have to take certain series of steps. So as we evaluate the steps, we've got to evaluate what's the most important thing. To me, the number one most important thing is to stop putting people in cages for their cultivation or use of cannabis. Okay, let's take care of that. Let's take care of not locking people up for growing it and not locking people up for using it. Now, does that mean that we still lock people up who are possibly selling it in some circumstances? Maybe so. But we got to take these things piece by piece. We've got to get it to the point where we can claim some victory to move on and build on that victory to take it to the next level, right? So we can start with ending the criminalization of people that are using it. Then let's move to ending the criminalization of people that are growing it. Then let's move to ending the criminalization of people that are selling it. Then let's move to a full commercial market for it. Then let's move on reducing the restrictions on that commercial market and reducing the age of consent or whatever it might be. But we have to be mature and responsible about this and understand reality that these things are going to happen step by step by step. Okay? We didn't go from African American slavery to the situation we have now with equal rights. And again, they're still not as equal as they should be, but we didn't get from there to there in one fell swoop. It took wars, and it took Reconstruction, and it took marches, and it took Martin Luther King. It took all of that to make the progress we made. And at no point during those steps did we reject the half measures because they weren't the perfect end result that we'd all want. We took the steps as they came, and we have to continue to do that in marijuana law reform if we want to make any progress. Furthermore, I think one of the things that we have with the Treat It Like Tomatoes crowd and those of us in the movement is we do realize we've been lied to. We do realize it's been propagandized against. And when we see the truth, it's very frustrating when we have to deal with the 80% or 90% of the public out there that doesn't know the truth. But think of it like you think of evangelism. Think of someone that you've ever met who's become new to a religion, and they've seen the light, they've seen the truth, and they can't stop talking to you about it. Think about how that makes you feel and how you reacted to that person. Now, imagine that's us to most of those people out there that don't know about marijuana. To them, they may not think marijuana is so bad. It might not be the worst thing in the world. Maybe they even smoked some when they were younger. But it's also not the most important thing in the world to them either. It's also not the magical healing wonder herb that we think it is. So when we come to them and we're like, oh, hemp is wonderful and cannabis and medical marijuana and you've been lied to and the propaganda and blah, blah, blah. We hit them. We beat them over the head, right? Learn the truth, learn the truth. I think that turns some of them off. I think some of them start to think, what have you been smoking, right? It's time, we do have to educate, of course, but it has to be, spoon feeding here, right? We got the pipe sometimes shoved down their throat and just pumping in all the truth and the facts. And I think sometimes we overwhelm people, and they think that something that sounds too good to be true usually is, and it is when you start to think about marijuana and think about, hemp and all the things. Literally, we could sit here, and we did it during Hemp History Week, and lay out point for point, the greenhouse gas effects, the use of industrial hemp to on the soil, how well it replenishes the soil, how it uses less pesticides, how it uses less water, all the wonderful things we can point out. And if you were explaining these to someone who had never heard of it before or didn't believe it before, to them it's going through. It's going to sound incredible.
You sound like a damn dirty hippie, and that's always one of my biggest fears, is that I'm going to sound like a damn dirty hippie to my Republican uncle.
Right, and these are people that we have to get through to, and we have to be able to convince them that yes, all the things we're saying are true, but you can't throw it all at them at once. We need to be careful about that, and the treat it like tomatoes thing, another point I wanted to make about this is that marijuana is not tomatoes, okay? Marijuana is a substance that you can use that will change your perceptions, okay? Average mom, pa, soccer parents out there aren't afraid of their kid going out on a late night, adventure and hopping your fence and stealing your tomatoes. They're not afraid of your kid getting a hold of some tomatoes and eating them and getting behind the wheel of a car. They're not afraid of their daughters going out with somebody who might entice them with some tomato ketchup, for fun on a date.
This isn't Mayberry, folks.
It's not Mayberry. So this is one thing we have to remember, is that to the people we are trying to convince, marijuana is at law, and probably worse because it's an illegal drug. Now, we know that's not true. We know the truth about it. We know how beneficial it would be for people to have the safer choice to use marijuana instead of alcohol. But we have to remember that reality is what you make it, right? Reality is what your perceptions and your interpretations make it to be. And to those people, marijuana is dangerous. Now, we need to get them from marijuana is so dangerous we should lock people up over it to, yeah, marijuana is dangerous, but so is alcohol, so let's come up with a similar solution, right? That's the first step. Get them to that spot where they can come up with a frame in their mind where they can understand marijuana. Then once they are in that level playing field, then the truth that we start to tell them about marijuana and the truth that they start to see with their own eyes as people legally use it, that will naturally get them to start to question, well, wait a minute, this doesn't seem as bad as alcohol at all. Gee, my friends that smoke pot don't become belligerent jerks. I don't hear all about a whole lot of wrecks or anything. That's what needs to happen, but it can't happen until we at least make the first baby steps to decriminalize its use and cultivation and possession at some major level, at a state level. That's the first step that has to happen. I applaud California for taking that step in 2010, and in a way, it might be the silver lining of Prop 19 is that we attempted it in 2010, learned all the lessons that we're going to learn from it, and then we're going forth in 2012 when the electoral landscape may be more in our favor. Imagine if we had waited till 2012, made the mistakes with Prop 19 we made, and then have to wait till 2016 for another presidential election year. So if you want a good silver lining out of the whole Prop 19 thing, maybe that's it. We learned our lessons in time. I'm Radical Russ, and so proud to say for Ganja John and Cannabis Carrie, thanks for joining us here for Normal Show Live's 600th episode, which will be available on podcast download through iTunes and our blog at stash.normal.org. Stay tuned for Hour 2 if you're listening live. For those of you listening on podcast, thanks for listening, and until next time, take care of each other.